How's it, guys? This is Dayvy FPL and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be reviewing your drafts. I asked over on my Twitter page at Dayvy FPL to send me your guys' final drafts as we head into that game week 1 deadline. Apologies if your draft was not covered in this video. What I try to do is pick 5 drafts that were quite different from each other to not make the video too repetitive. I won't be rating them or scoring them from a scale of 1 to 10. I'll rather be analyzing them and giving my advice on how to improve these drafts. As you know, there's not a single right draft for FPL. Everyone has their opinions and there's not going to be a right answer. So if that's something that you're interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get into the video. So a new season calls for a new sponsor, but here on the Dayvy FPL channel, we like our old. So I've brought back the old sponsor, OneFootball, but with a completely new revamped app. Yes, OneFootball has gone over a complete marketing revamp, new logo, new everything. I've checked it out, looks really good. They kind of took the old app, but just made it better. So I'm really appreciative of that. If you want to go check them out, link down in the description below to go download the app. If you don't know who they are, they're the biggest app on iOS and Android, so go check them out. I personally use them, so I can recommend them from a personal level. So a lot of people have been asking me about our league code for Dayvy versus the world. So the code is on screen right now. If you are listening on audio or not looking at the screen, it is VCEL19. I look forward to joining you guys there. Can't really guarantee a prize, unfortunately, but we'll see throughout the season, and hopefully one of you actually ends up winning that are in the league, and we can kind of show that off in future videos. But join the league if you want to, no stress if you don't. So the first draft we want to be going over, and the reason why I've highlighted it is because I firstly want to talk about the whole Son to Bruno Fernandes / Greenwood / Rashford. A lot of people in the comments and with their transfer plans are planning on taking out Heung-min Son in game week 2 for a Manchester United midfielder. While this is a good move, I would personally recommend not to have Son then for the first game week. While Son is a really good FPL option, I don't really think of him as a 1 week punt. Spurs' fixtures get a lot better after the first game week, so if you're not going to be holding him for the first 3 or 4 games, I don't really understand why you have him. Everton at home, while it is a home fixture, Everton have improved massively with their transfers, so I do think it's going to be quite a close game and quite a tough one for Spurs. So I would personally opt for someone different with a better fixture, maybe someone like a Leicester asset or maybe even an Arsenal asset with that lovely first fixture that they have. You could also go for someone completely differential that is quite a lot cheaper, because at the end of the day, the price does not matter if they are 1 week punt. So the second thing about this draft that I wanted to talk about that is quite interesting, this is a Salah / Mane-less draft. He's decided to go for a triple up in defense with his Liverpool assets. I forgot to mention the name. This is from I Am FPL, quite a fitting name there since this is an FPL draft. Alexander-Arnold, Robertson and Van Dijk all at the back, accompanied by Doherty. So definitely a big at the back draft. My personal recommendation is I wouldn't triple up on the Liverpool assets. I know it's probably a long-term goal that you just want to keep the premium defense, but I think with those starting fixtures, I would probably hold a maximum of 2 of them. Alexander and Robertson should be sufficient, and then maybe just downgrade Van Dijk to put more money in your midfield and your attack. So that's the one thing with these transfer plans that we have to be is flexible, and having a lot of your budget in the defense is not going to equal flexibility. So maybe downgrade Van Dijk to a 4.5 and then upgrade your midfield or your attack so that you can bring in those United and City assets without having to take a downgrade on your defense and costing you a -4 hit. I do like the big at the back defense though. I think it's going to be one of the strategies that we can go for this season, but I think the triple up in Liverpool is a bit too much, and I would only kind of recommend that when the fixtures get a lot better. Overall, otherwise, the draft is quite nice, has that kind of template forward line of Werner, Mitrovic and Ings, which I do like, and then of course you have Aubameyang, who I almost think is one of those essential picks for at least the first 2 game weeks. The bench, I can't really mention on that Leeds player, I don't know if he is playing or not, but Basuma apparently is a 4.5 option that does play, and then Gordon is another one. Now Gordon, I don't know if he is going to play, so I probably would recommend upgrading one of those 4.5 midfielders, so at least you have a player that if one of these starters doesn't start, you can have a player off the bench. But overall, I like the draft. I like the different strategy of going big at the back. I haven't really seen many drafts like this. The next draft we're going to be talking about is a little bit more of a template draft. However, he has opted for Ali and Son in midfield. So as I said, a template squad, and that's what the defense is, kind of Alexander-Arnold and then 4.5 surrounding him. The 4.5s you must just monitor. This goes for everyone, even myself. Hopefully we get more news on Vinagre and Justin before that game week 1 deadline. Otherwise, we could be in some hot water come game week 2 when these players aren't starting. I do like the front line of Werner and Mitrovic. The only thing maybe I would consider is because you don't have a Southampton attacker, they do have some nice fixtures, so you could consider maybe a Che Adams instead of a Mitrovic, but Mitrovic is more of a talisman, so I think that's probably why you've gone for him. The Son and Ali pick, well, as I said, I don't really like that Everton fixture. What I hope is that you kind of upgrade Son or Ali to one of the United assets, and that gives you enough time in game week 1 to pick who you want to choose. I do think you'll be keeping Ali or Son for a couple of game weeks at least, so that's why I don't mind the double up here, as there is potential to keep them even if they do go up in price. The bench is pretty normal with at least Taylor that should be starting, but then Mitchell, just monitor that situation with Patrick van Aanholt on his way back from injury. And then lastly, this draft was from Matthew, so thanks a lot for submitting it. The next draft is from Jado Jamal. His draft also is Salahless, and that's why I wanted to show you, because he's gone almost the opposite as the big in the back. He's gone big up front. Vardy, Werner, and Harry Kane. Currently got that captaincy on Kane, which is quite interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if he sticks with it, but then he also has Ramsdale's vice captain, so just make sure you change your vice captain, guys, please. So Werner, Vardy, and Kane is probably the best attack that you can get in terms of those forwards, and I really do like it. You're probably going to be considering bringing the likes of Martial in, which makes perfect sense, as you can kind of monitor the situation with Werner and Vardy and Kane and see which one is kind of hitting form, and then you can just transfer the one that's not out. You also have Aubameyang in that midfield with the likes of Son, so just be careful with that Son and Kane double up against Everton, because I'm pretty sure you're going to be transferring one of them out for a Manchester City or United asset come game week 2 or 3. So just, I would probably take, as I said, a punt on a different player than Son, especially because you already have Harry Kane, so don't put all your eggs in one basket. The defense, nothing much to talk about there. I do like your goalkeeper. Ramsdale is a really good option from now to the end of the season. I think Sheffield United are going to be a really strong defensive side. We can't really look at the bench because unfortunately the screenshot kind of cut it off, but what I can read from it is Mitchell, Souček, and McCarthy. So McCarthy, I don't know if he's going to be playing, maybe choose another 4.5, and then Mitchell, just monitor that situation with Patrick van Aanholt. Overall, I really like this draft. I'm always kind of a fan of going bigger up front because the attack is more exciting than a premium defender, so I do like what you've done with this. So the next 2 drafts, I've kind of combined them into 2 because they are quite similar, not in terms of players, but in terms of strategy. So these drafts are when you have a United player on the bench. We spoke about this in the preview, that I'm not the biggest fan of doing this method because I think it really does hinder your starting 11. You can see here that you either have to start a 4.5 midfielder or even a 4.0 million defender. In the game week 1, this doesn't really matter that much because Mitchell should be starting for Crystal Palace, so you can get away with that. And apparently there are some other options, even the likes of Wolves apparently have a 4.0 defender that could be starting in game week 1. So not the end of the world, but I do think that I prefer maybe using a transfer instead. I think I would only do this strategy if you really want Martial or Bruno Fernandes and you kind of know who you want. Then you can keep them on the bench because that way you're not going to have to pay any price rises after that game week 1 deadline. So the first team on the left we're going to be talking about is from Will, and then the second team is from FPL, a whole bunch of numbers. So the team on the left has a pretty nice defense. We've got Walker-Peters, Robertson, and Tierney. I would maybe just be a little bit cautious about that double up with that Southampton defense, but if you're perfectly fine with that, they have some good fixtures. And then probably the only other thing I have to say about your defense is I don't really like Robertson. I think I personally prefer Trent Alexander-Arnold. I just think he has that better attacking threat out of the two. What you could do is downgrade Pereira. I know you probably have Pereira in here for a specific reason and you do like him as a player, but you can easily downgrade him to a 5.5, maybe St. Maximum or Armstrong, and then you can upgrade Robertson to TAA. That should give you enough money. Salah and Aubameyang in this draft, so those are your premium midfielders. And then up front, you've gone for a little bit of a differential here. Antonio had one of the best end to the seasons out of any player last season, so I can see why you've gone for him. But I think that you could also look at maybe some other players because of those tough West Ham fixtures at the start. I'm thinking of Mitrovic, Che Adams. You could even make another 0.5 and then upgrade him to Callum Wilson if you wanted, as I see you are lacking some sort of Newcastle attack. We spoke about having to play a 4.5 midfielder, and you've got Reed in here, and then if you look at your bench, you've got Williams and Mitchell. So I don't think Neco Williams is going to start a lot of games this season, so I would maybe look at another 4 million defender, or maybe you could even try and find another 0.5 and then upgrade him to a predictable Burnley defender who's probably going to be starting. Martial on the bench here, so you are going to be saving those price rises, and he will come on for game week 2. So if you're willing to take the risk on injury news, then I do think you can get away with this, but I just would try and squeeze out and make a more well-rounded squad than the current squad you have, as I'm not the biggest fan of Pereira, Reed, and then doubling up on that West Ham attack. The team on the right is a little bit different here. We've gone for a more budget forward department with Mitrovic and Adams. I think that's because you've got both Greenwood and Fernandes on your bench, so quite a couple of players there. I don't really like the Doucouré pick. He comes in at 5.5. You can easily switch him out for a St. Maximum or an Armstrong. I think that they'll both have better attacking threats than the likes of Doucouré. And then in terms of your defense, I really do like the Alexander-Arnold and Robertson double up. I think that's going to be quite profitable. And then you've got Justin, Walker-Peters and McCarthy. So the same thing with that double up in that Southampton defense. If you're really keen on that, that's perfectly fine. But I would maybe vary those and maybe bring in another 4.5 that plays. So the last draft we're going to be talking about is from FPL Trent66. So you probably can guess who he has in his squad. Yes, Trent Alexander-Arnold, but that's not the only premium defender he has. He's gone for Doherty, Robertson and Tierney. Combination of Walker-Peters there at 4.5, and then he's also opted for Ryan in goal. So Ryan and Walker-Peters could be quite a popular pick in defense, especially if you don't want to double up on that Southampton defense, as I think Ryan and Walton provide that perfect 8.5 rotation that we always talk about. Button managed to transfer out, but he's been replaced by Walton now. On your bench, you don't have much to talk about. Basuma, Reed and Davis. So I think that those players are perfectly fine. Probably not expecting them to play too many games, so I can understand why you've gone quite cheap. Then in the midfield, we've got Salah, Son, Aubameyang, and up front, Ings and Mitrovic. So I really like the Ings and the Mitrovic pick. You're not kind of banking on the Chelsea attack here. You've gone kind of for a red and white squad. The only thing that I have to say about this draft, just be careful with the teams that you're picking. You've kind of put your eggs in one basket with a lot of teams. You've got triple Liverpool, double Spurs, double Arsenal, Southampton double, and then Mitrovic and Ryan as the kind of one player punts. So of course you're relying heavily on if the team does well, which could be quite profitable, but in FPL I always like to spread out my assets. So I think that you could maybe diversify your team a little bit. I'm thinking of maybe Son out for another player, maybe the likes of a Leicester asset like Harvey Barnes, if you're going to be taking out Son anyway for Bruno Fernandes or Rashford game week 2. You could also look for Son to a Chelsea attacker, because I do think that Chelsea attack is going to be quite good this season, so that could be another point of color in your squad. But overall, I like the kind of variation you've gone for, also a little bit big at the back, so hopefully it does pay off for you. So this is basically going to wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new and have not subscribed yet. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the final team selection, as well as probably a deadline stream if I do have power. I'll be checking you guys over on Twitter at DayvyFPL. Follow me if you don't, and I'll be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.